We understand there was a daily meeting of sort of the senior-most staff around 8 a.m. every morning. Were you involved in those meetings?
Yes, I was.
And there was a second sort of broader meeting of the other senior staff around 8:40 or whenever the first one wrapped up. Is that fair also?
The times changed in the course of this administration, so I don't want to be held to times. But yes, there was a smaller meeting and a larger meeting.
And you were generally at both of these meetings?
Yes.
Who else was in the earlier senior-most staff meeting generally?
Senior advisors, if national security was a big issue, Jake Sullivan or somebody else from NSC would often drop by to give us an update on what was happening. Annie Tomasini, Anthony Bernal representing the First Lady. Jen O'Malley Dillon was there when she was Deputy Chief of Staff. But once she left to become campaign manager, she didn't participate.
And the broader meeting was sort of department heads. Is that fair?
Yeah, the broader meeting was the full senior staff of the White House. Yes.
What was the usual topic of the earlier senior-most staff meeting?
No, there wasn't a usual topic because there's really not a normal day in the White House. So, sometimes it would be the president's schedule, what he was doing that day. Is the speech pinned down? Do we know what we're doing here? Sometimes it would be an update on Congress and legislation, what was going on there, what needed to happen. Again, it was kind of dependent on the day, but it was an opportunity for the strategic group to meet in the morning, kind of talk to each other about whatever was front of mind.
During these senior-most staff meetings, were there ever discussions of President Biden's health, his cognition, or his age?
None that I can remember. In terms of cognitive, I can certainly say that age is a polling issue. I can't give you what day we discussed it, but I'm sure we discussed it.
And not to go back to this sort of bifurcation of age and sort of the things that come with age, but you're sort of saying again that age was a polling issue. Did you all at that time not see concerns about cognition, whether those come with age or not, as being a polling issue as well, worthy of discussion?
What we were discussing was strategically what we needed to get done. And as I recall, to the best of my recollection, the issue around age was one we discussed. I do not recall any specific discussions around cognitive issues.
And so the discussions around the president's age, were those only discussions of public perceptions of his age, or were there concerns from within the staff as well?
No. As I remember, they were very much discussions around public perception and addressing public perceptions and concerns.
And to be more specific about public perception, did that include conversations about the perception of cabinet members, members of Congress, party leaders, anyone like that about President Biden's age?
I'm not sure I understand exactly what this question is.
During these senior-most staff meetings, did you ever have discussions about cabinet members, members of Congress, or party leaders being concerned about President Biden's age?
I can't remember any specific discussions of that kind.
And then, same question for the broader meeting. Did any of those topics I just asked you about, did those come up at the broader meeting at 8:40-ish?
As I remember, the 8:40 meeting was more for people to report in what the various parts of the White House were doing that day. So it was a coordination meeting.
And when those staff reported in, you don't recall any instances where they were reporting in hearing or otherwise dealing with concerns about President Biden's age, health, or cognition?
No, I do not remember that.
During either of these meetings, these daily meetings, were there ever discussions of executive decisions that had been made or were to be made in the future?
Yes. Those the senior advisors played, and the entire senior White House staff played an important role in getting those decisions to the president's desk.
And so there were related discussions during both of those meetings frequently?
Yes.
During your time at the White House, what was your understanding of the process for getting approval from President Biden on an executive decision?
When you talk about executive decision, are you talking about an executive order? Are you talking about something a cabinet agency is doing? I mean, there are a lot of executive decisions that get made.
Executive orders is certainly one. Pardons, clemency decisions, legislation that he would be signing, anything of that nature.
Do you want to maybe speak to something that you're aware of, a topic that you're aware of?
I'm terrible at remembering specific
I'll
ones.
split up.
Yeah,
the
split it up.
compound question.
Thank you.
Were you involved at all in the decision-making of approving legislation?
Of whether or not the president would sign legislation.
Yes.
By and large, I was not. By the time legislation got to a point where it was passing this body and the Senate, generally speaking, whether the president was going to sign or veto it would have become clear.
And your involvement in signing or vetoing legislation would be more from a comms perspective than the policy perspective?
Wait, you're asking if she was involved in signing or vetoing
No,
legislation?
in the decision-making process around it, would you come in and say, from a comms perspective, this is what we're looking at, versus a discussion regarding whether or not the changes in the rescue plan were good changes?
No. As I remember, I was primarily involved in giving my best judgment on how things, would play with our party, with various constituencies, with the press.
Right. And then were you involved in the decisions of whether or not to issue executive orders?
Again, as I remember, executive orders were, we would discuss them at senior advisors, but by and large, that process was helmed by Bruce Reed. And they a lot of times came through cabinet agencies, through the cabinet process to Bruce's desk.
What about pardons or clemency?
Pardons and clemency was that process was led by the White House counsel's office. Yeah. 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 So that the recommendations to the president on pardons and clemencies were developed by the White House counsel's office, that a group of which I was one of the people would look at them, and then the recommendations would go to the president for his decisions.
And I'm trying to tie a bow on this, and I hate hypotheticals. I know I'm going to get hit for asking a hypothetical, but in the situation that legislation, I'll use executive order because it doesn't involve Article 1. The executive order process is happening. People are going back and forth with agencies on what the policy looks like, back and forth with the president and other advisors on what the policy looks like. My understanding of what you said is that you would be involved in some of those discussions, but primarily from a communications and press perspective. Is that fair?
I think that's a fair characterization. Okay. My role in those things were prepared for a recommendation to the president. Often I didn't know about some of them. I mean, it just didn't rise to the level where I was paying attention to them.
All right, thank you.